You hear it around the table at the firehouse. You see it in departmental policies and standard operating guidelines. You probably have your own ideas about what it means on the fire ground. We did too, but we also found that everyone's definition varies slightly. So, what does coordination on the fire ground really mean? The fire service experts that comprise our technical panel come from departments of varying sizes and response models. We listened as these experts from across the country shared their opinions and working definitions of coordination. Hover over the map to see the represented locations. Click Next to continue. Let's take a moment to hear from a few of those tech panel members now.
A little bit about coordination in maybe from what you thought about it when the project started to where or how you've changed or maybe not changed or confirmed what coordination means to you now. Nick, why don't we start with you?
It's one of those terms that we often utilize when we talk tactics, especially with fire attack and ventilation, but we have a hard time putting our finger on it. You know, what it actually means to coordinate those two functions, specifically the timing of ventilation. And we kind of boiled it down to it's starts well before the bell ever hits for the call. It's putting the systems in place, and that could be your SOPs and your SOGs. It could be your unit and riding assignments. It's setting up that playbook and that baseline of operations that we all kind of start from. And then from there, it's what's our intent? What are we trying to accomplish based off of our objectives on the fire ground? And then what is our intended outcome? What's the effect that we're trying to obtain by doing so? And that's how we kind of get to that tactical selection. And then what does it look like to time that so we can achieve that effect?
Excellent. And Shay, what about you?
The first thing that I realized was that the coordinated fire attack or coordination in general, I think is one of those kind of blanket terms that everyone just, like Nick said, just takes for granted. It's in the textbook, all the instructors, we need to coordinate our fire attack. But I realized that we didn't really understand as a fire service, we didn't really understand what coordination actually meant or how to define it. And I also realized that regionally, there's a lot of different definitions for what coordination means. Whether you're in New Britain or in Ridgefield or LA or Seattle. And I think that it has to do with staffing, arrival time. There's a lot of things that go into it. For me, my definition was going into it was, a very methodical, sequential occurrence of events. But after, I think I realized that it really has to be a benchmarked on, certain fire ground incidents or certain fire ground benchmarks that you're hitting to kind of queue up that next thing. Instead of just, we're going to go in and we're going to paint by numbers, we really have to make critical thinking decisions where when this happens, then this is the next thing. It begins well before the fire, and our whole system really needs to be designed around the coordination.
On the fire ground has been all over the map, and I would say that how I define coordination from the beginning of this study to today is a lot different. When we talk coordinated in the Los Angeles County Fire Department, we talked about the truck is going to ventilate in coordination with the engine, but at the end of the day, there was very little conversation between the two. And what we're seeing out on the fire ground today is the truck understanding that they are there to assist the engine company or work for the engine company, and the two are communicating together. But I think the thing that has really opened my eyes in this coordinated attack study is that how that coordination doesn't end. It doesn't end until we've completed our search, till we've completed our primary search, we've completed our secondary search, and we're really into that overhaul phase, because we have to continue to coordinate the fire attack process, getting things knocked down, coordinating that search, and coordinating that end of ventilation piece of getting the fan in place or opening up some windows and continuing to evacuate all that extra CO and smoke, and ensuring that all that's done together in a coordinated effort. So to me, coordination goes from the time you arrive until really you're into that overhaul phase.
As you heard, a coordinated fire attack may look different from one fireground to the next, depending on the fire itself, the built environment, and the specific fire department response model. Despite the complexities of the fireground and the many variables that contribute to the definition of coordination, there is some common ground. We can agree that a coordinated fire attack is based on a systematic approach to the implementation of tactics. Simply put, ventilation and suppression cannot be thought of as independent actions. Ventilation affects suppression, and suppression affects ventilation. Therefore, a critical aspect of fireground coordination is understanding whether these actions can be performed sequentially or simultaneously, depending on the fire department response model and the immediate priorities of a given incident. The National Fire Protection Association Guide for Structural Firefighting currently defines coordination as the following. On the fireground, coordination means that all of the crews operating on the fireground are working together. It means that timing is precise, movements are well choreographed, and communications are clear and concise. Specifically, fire control, search and rescue, and ventilation or non-ventilation crews should all operate as one. Coordinated fireground operations enhance life safety, incident stabilization, and property conservation. Armed with this understanding of fireground coordination and charged by the project technical panel to answer questions related to ventilation and suppression tactics in single-family homes, a series of experiments were designed and conducted. Given the findings from previous research, the focus of the Fire Service Technical Panel was on the coordination of fire control strategies for second-floor bedroom fires and first-floor kitchen fires. 20 experiments were developed to evaluate 6 different coordination methods grouped by the fire location. Click Next to continue. The main control variables included the position of the initial application of water, the ventilation method, and whether that ventilation was performed before or after water was applied to the fire compartment. Although additional strategies were discussed, the selected methods were deemed to represent most of the initial arriving crew's options when presented with a second-floor bedroom fire or a first-floor kitchen fire in a single-family structure. Additionally, 2 experiments were conducted to look at the impact of a missing ceiling on the effectiveness of exterior fire control. In the remainder of this module, we will examine the acquired structures, the fuel loading, the instrumentation used, and the specific test scenarios.